Then he sends a shoot, a jewelry shoot, and we're going, whoa, that model looks like a kid. She looks like a child. We're not running that. We're not that sort of magazine. And we didn't really think anything of it. I lost touch with this guy. One of my New York friends who still represents us in New York calls me. She said, Jack, the FBI's called. Call the real FBI office in New York and just find out if there's really a special agent by this name. And he says, holy shit, there is.
Overpressure refers to the sudden increase in pressure above the surroundings caused by the wave generated when something explodes. It propagates outward from the origin, capable of causing impact, momentum, or disruption, depending on its intensity and distance. It is a critical factor in assessing the effects of a mission. Welcome to the Overpressure podcast, where we dive into the explosive world of business for entrepreneurs who are vets or veteran entrepreneurs.
On today's episode of the Overpressure podcast, one of my favorite conversations that I've ever had on the show, Mr. Jack Yan out of New Zealand. This guy is a master of fashion and branding and type, and we got a lot into those topics, really discovering some of the excellent pathways that you can go when you're passionate about something as a career. And super excited for you guys to check out the show. All right. Welcome, everybody. We have Jack on today, coming to us from New Zealand, correct?
That's you over right, there, Wellington, New Zealand, in the capital.
Awesome. And, you know, he has had an incredible career that spans back further than I've been alive. So excited to dig into it and find out more about like your thought process behind it, how you've seen things change over time, and just, of course, as always, advice at the end. So what kind of brought you into the world of typography? Because that's really where you started. Like, what was the inspiration for that?
I think I just had a lifelong fascination with it. I started off in my very first year, I guess you would call it first grade. I'd get into the class, and on the wall was capital A, lowercase a, B, B, C, C, right across the classroom.
Right.
And the J, the lowercase J, didn't have a tail on it. I thought, hey, that's weird. I was taught that it had a tail. So I began noticing. And then, of course, you get books. Now, I went to a private school, and it's not because my parents were rich. It was because there was a private school here in Wellington which didn't charge a huge amount. It was a church-run school. And because we're outside the state system, the principal bought in American books. They're all Houghton Mifflin. And they were all typeset in Century School Book, which a lot of folks will know. They have it on their computers. And, you know, it's a serif typeface. That's not what 5-year-olds are taught to write in.
Right.
And I began thinking, hey, this is different again. So fast forward, say, until I was about 10 years old, and this book called The Lettering Book came out. Basically, it's a book on fonts with a blue grid behind the fonts. And it was $5. Now, in 1982, $5 for a working class family was a lot of money. So I didn't ask my parents for it. I thought, you know, it's cool. I'm glad my fellow pupils have got it. I'll just look at it whenever I can. And I kind of started loving the shapes. I memorized the shapes. And I think that was a good thing to not have this book, because I then started drawing my own typeface designs, my own fonts.
Wow.
And then what happened was, I was so fascinated, I thought maybe I can become a typeface designer. This is the one thing I'm interested in. I started sort of an after school job, just doing hand lettering and layouts for print agencies. My godmother got me into this gig with a print agency. And, I thought the aim is let's try to get in this area. So there was one guy in New Zealand, pretty much one guy in the whole Southern Hemisphere back then who did fonts for a living. His name was Joe Churchwood. And I thought, I'm going to go and see Joe. I'm going to go to his office. This is December 1987. And I get there and there's a sign on the door saying Churchwood International Typefaces has closed. I missed the guy for 1 week. He'd left the country.
Whoa.
And that's, again, a good thing. Like, not having things always drove me to make it. And so I just started sending font designs off to International Typeface Corporation in New York, to Linotype in Germany, to whoever. I got rejected by everybody.
Okay.
But then the software became available on the desktop. We're talking late 80s, early 90s. And I asked my mother, hey, can you buy this program? Because it was $395.
Okay.
And, God bless my mother. She just bought it. It wasn't a loan. She just bought it. She just thought, this is an investment in my son. I was like 19 years old. And from then I just started making fonts. I bought my gear. I didn't even have a flatbed scanner. I had a handheld black and white scanner. And I started making them, issuing them. And a company in upstate New York and Comic New York, Precision Type, said, we'd like to represent you in the United States. And I thought, there I was. So that's how I got into this world and just started making fonts.
How long from the time you went to the office and the sign was on the door until that contract kind of picked up?
6 years. In the 93. And looking back, if I was an adult and not a teenager, I probably wouldn't have done it, right? Because you need to make your nut. And but as a teenager, I was a student, so I had my university stuff in the daytime, and I would just head out between lectures to see clients. Pretty sure, I've got a baby face. I'm pretty sure everyone knew I was really young. But I was really enthusiastic, and I was doing work for this print agency, so I was out there. But in New Zealand, back then the population was like fewer than 4 million people, so it was a tiny country. You had more people in one city in the United States, so you could never be a specialist in this country. It was always you had to be a generalist who maybe had an interest in something. And so I knew then I couldn't be a full-time font designer. I had to do other things, but that was always the aim. I think part of it was kind of being an immigrant. I came to New Zealand when I was 4 years old, came from Hong Kong. I think self-employment's kind of in the blood because my father was self-employed, and he ran a company called Oxford International Limited, which sounds pretty fancy, but really he was doing mail order for the US troops in Nam. So we're going back to the early 70s. And his business partner was a US Air Force doctor by the name of Captain Lawson Eugene McClung, who I think is still practicing today as a doctor.
That's an incredible name.
He's out west. In fact, he is from your state. He is from Tennessee.
Okay.
And we could have actually gone to Tennessee, but through various things, we wound up in New Zealand. So I could have actually grown up talking just like you. Which would have been cool because I love the Southern accents. I think they're beautiful. But when you're an immigrant, you're always thinking about the world outside. Like if I was born here, I don't think I'd think so much about exporting. But because we're in the bottom of the world, this is one of the most isolated countries on the planet. We don't have border issues because we're surrounded by an ocean. So when you're out here, you think, hey, there's a world out there. I want to reach the world. There's no internet. There's no satellite TV. There's no YouTube. And your only way of reaching the world is to literally ship floppy disks to a distributor to see if your fonts are good enough for them to carry. Thank God the fax machine got invented. So you're faxing things as well. And those two things, I think, it was always about what's outside New Zealand. I really want to reach out and just do something and to bring the world bring the rest of the world into my world. And that's kind of what drove me, I think, to first, obviously it was an interest, but second of all, I knew I couldn't just do this domestically because no one would understand. I remember picking up a New Zealand design magazine called Pro Design. And I'd been working now in the font industry. I was exporting. I've been going for about 4 years. And the magazine said, there are no font designers in New Zealand. I'm going, what? And
I beg to differ.
Yeah. I wrote to them and they said, well, we couldn't find you on the search engines. And I thought, that's BS. I'm on all the search engines. This is before Google, but I was definitely on Yahoo and I was on Excite and I was on InfoSeek and AltaVista. And that was the thinking, there was just the common belief that, oh, no, New Zealanders don't make this stuff. That Yeah, there was Joe. Yeah, Joe would have done a few fonts, but they got shipped off. A German company turned them into font software. He couldn't do it himself. And you're right. I was like, I beg to differ. I wrote to them, and it was just understood strangely that we couldn't do it. And I'm thinking, yeah, you could do it. And the good thing was I paved the way for a lot of younger guys who followed me into the industry. They didn't have to fight. They just got, oh yeah, of course, Jack's doing it. Of course I'm doing it. And that was a great thing because there's such talent here that was kind of locked up. And then everyone realized, well, if that guy can, maybe I can too. Create a lot of competitors.
I mean, that can be a good thing if you look at it right. It seems like that absolutely led to kind of what you highlight after that of virtual companies and starting in the 90s. I thought our company was remote in 2016, and I thought that was early, but a little bit before that, I guess being that isolated led to building a remote company, virtual.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. In fact, I was even trying to do it with bulletin boards within my own city. Because when you're starting a business and you're a teenager, you don't have the money to go and rent an office downtown because you probably couldn't get enough work to sustain it. And I had a friend of mine, if we can go back to the late 80s, I'm still at high school. I had a friend of mine who's really good at art. And I used to think, I'm kind of sick of just driving to see my friend all the time. I got a driver's license at 15. I love cars. I just got into it. And is there a way that he could just scan his stuff and put it on a bulletin board and I just grab it? So I was thinking about virtual companies before even the term was coined.
Right.
And when I heard it for the first time at university, because I did marketing, I did law, I thought, yeah, hey, that's what I've been doing. But it was finding the specialists. So, here I am, I'm at university, I'm doing my fonts. I've got an email address, which was a pretty rare thing in the early 90s. And I'm trying to find my colleagues. So eventually I joined various email discussion groups. One of them is still going, and it's been going for 30 years. And I met a lot of the folks who are really into that early wave of desktop font design. Joe Tracy at Tracy Faces, he's in the United States. Rudy Vanderlands and Susanna Licker at Emigre, and they were out in California. And you begin to realize, hey, I'm not alone, which is a great feeling, because at that point I was the only guy doing it in New Zealand. There are a few guys in Australia, but none of them, and this is also strange too, there's a whole bunch of incredibly talented Australians, and a lot of them were better than me at design, but they didn't want to export. They would just go, I'm happy doing a font for a business, but I don't want to make my own range and market it. And I always thought that was weird because there were guys who just had so much talent. But hey, it was nice to be in a position to be the first guy to do it, first person to do it, and to just carve out my niche, my niche. And then found the colleagues abroad. And because in New Zealand you couldn't be a specialist, had to be generalist, I started doing branding as well. I started doing brand work, started doing publishing work. And then you realize, okay, where are my colleagues in branding? And again, a lot of colleagues domestically who weren't interested at all in exporting, weren't interested at all at selling their services online. And I'm going, but there's hardly anybody online. This is the 90s. I want to build a little team. So I started really just reaching out to colleagues who are in the same line of business. Again, it wasn't fast. It was probably another sort of, I don't think I really formed a good virtual team till probably the turn of the century. We're talking 2001, 2002, because you had to meet the folks as well. So I had to fly to meet them. No Zoom, no Google Meet.
Different times. And when you met them, you realize, okay, this is someone I want to work with. And again, I guess being a young man, trying to earn a living in New Zealand, saving enough to go up overseas, it took a little while to meet everybody. But I think I had a pretty good team sort of as we started, say, 2002, which was just as well, because after 9/11,
a lot of, say, ad sales on the internet, a lot of things just went quiet. So I was
Okay.
really glad to have built a team in branding. And also what happened there too was we got this large job from Deutsche Bank in January 2002. And because we had no money in the publishing business, it was really good to get a big font job from a multinational bank. And that kept us going for into 2002.
That's awesome. From just sticking with it, finding other opportunities to help you, building a team like that's part of our business that I absolutely love is building the team. I know another aspect is the publishing side, and you got into magazines and books. Was that another one of those efforts to kind of supplement along the way, or was that just, after
Yeah.
.com and it's like, all right, we got to figure out what to do?
It was, again, it came naturally. So I'm working at the print agency after school during my high school years, and they threw me everything. I was the gopher. So I did proofreading jobs, I did, layouts. And one thing I found I was really good at was publishing. I was really good at coordinating copy from a whole bunch of different people and putting it together into one volume. And I started on school yearbooks.
Okay.
This was the thing I knew, right? When you're a high school student, yearbooks are what you know. And in I don't know what the grade system, the second to last year of high school, I'm not sure what you call it there, 12th grade, 11th grade,
11. Yeah.
11th grade. One of the guys in at my high school had gone on a student exchange to the US, and of course,
Okay.
yearbooks are the thing that you finish your
Especially
12th grade with. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the school had the official yearbook, which was really formal, right? It's got the rugby team will be the 15 guys with their arms crossed. They're all posing. And Matthew Hardwick was this guy's name, my fellow student's name. And he said, we should do a yearbook for our 12th grade. And so I said, yeah, okay, let's do it. And I wound up pretty much running the thing. And it was really great. This was 1990. Elle Macpherson was the body. She was a supermodel. We put her on the cover, probably illegally.
Nice.
And inside was just like every student had 1/3 of a page to do whatever they wanted. And this is a pretty nice school, so it didn't get too nasty inside those pages. I think there was like a slightly obscured F word on a T-shirt in one of the photos, but other than that, it was pretty clean. And there were articles in there and different stories about the year. Our soccer team was useless. I think they won one game in the whole season, so that was in there. And it was a joy to do at the end of 12th grade, going off to college. And we're the only school that I knew of that did this. Everyone just had their formal, official school yearbook. Right. And that really just carried on. I never really stopped. I did other yearbooks. I did some of those formal ones as well. And then people started coming to me with, hey, I've got a biography I want published. I want this published. And it got to a point where I was starting an online magazine. So I found the internet. I thought, this is fantastic. I had a print magazine called CAP, which was Create Art Print. And this was just a black and white run-off at a photocopying shop, 16-pager that I used to do every quarter. And I thought this could go online because then I could go full color. Mm-hmm. And that ticked along pretty well. This is before WordPress, so each page was individually HTML coded, which took ages, but it looked good. And toward 1996, I was in my postgrad class at university doing marketing, and the course was innovation. I thought, I've got an idea. How about a fashion magazine for the internet? And there are a few that had cropped up. There was Fashionnet, there was Lucire, which both were from I think a Swedish guy living in Paris. He's now living in California, and he was a real visionary. And I thought, I want to do something like that. And at the time, there was nothing in this part of the world. So again, a very different time. In fact, Vogue was not even online. Harper's Bazaar was not online. So the top brands you can think of weren't even present. And I did the project for my postgraduate year, and I got an A. It seemed like it could be commercialized, so I thought let's do it. A friend of mine came up with the name Lucire. A lot of people call it Lucire, which is how it's spelled. And but my friend was learning Italian at the time, so she said Lucire, and so I put it into Alta Vista, the biggest search engine in the world. Then it was so easy to type: 3 consonants, 3 vowels. Nothing came up. It was completely blank. I thought, great, this is a made-up word. I can get a US trademark registration, which I did, and we launched on October 20th, 1997. We got a lot of traffic the first day. I had no follow-up stories. I honestly thought I could get people interested in being online, but no one even knew what online was. And my first feature interviewee didn't even have a website, but she took a chance on me. And, she's done really well because she's now the deputy mayor of the city. But then she was a fashion designer. She took a chance, and I interviewed her, hoping that I'd maybe get, once people saw proof of concept, I'd get the other stories coming in. Nothing happened for 3 months or 2 months. I thought, this is terrible. I've started this thing. I've got no content, and the traffic's going down because people are realizing, this is just a one-hit wonder.
Right.
Amazon.com, this new website that I just heard about, was doing Christmas books, Christmas fashion books. And I thought, I've read some of these. Okay, I'm going to do book reviews. And so we had new content going to Christmas 1997. And then thank goodness 1998, people started sending me the press releases and started sending me content. I'm going, okay, we exist. This is real. And it just built, again, you're grabbing in friends, because early days startup, you can't pay a salary to anybody. But we did some pretty cool things, those early shoots and those early layouts, because every page had to be individually done. You're just full creative freedom. You don't have to worry about how things looked on a mobile device. You're only designing for a monitor. Right. And boy, we had a lot of fun. It was, and Lucire just grew. So we came to the turn of the century. 9/11 happens. We have no advertising for 11 months. So thank God we had that Deutsche Bank deal. We had some other branding work come in. We get to 2003, and I'm at Fashion Week in New Zealand. Now, everyone's doing Fashion Weeks in the early 2000s. So there was like Copenhagen Fashion Week. There was San Francisco Fashion Week. And I was at New Zealand Fashion Week. I got talking to the boss of McCann Erickson, the ad agency. And I said, could we do a print magazine based in Lucire? And she said, I think there's a market for it. And if you do it, I will guarantee I will get you L'Oreal as a client. Oh. I thought, wow, you cannot beat that, right? L'Oreal's the biggest beauty advertiser in the country, if not the world. And I had been doing little CD-ROM magazines that looked like print magazines. I was distributing them CD-ROM after Fashion Week. And people were saying, this looks like a magazine, you should do it. So there are all these signs pointing to do it. So in 2004, we started doing prototypes. My first cover girl is now Jennifer Siebel Newsom. So Gavin Newsom's wife.
Okay, I wasn't sure her name, but it's like, is that? Yes. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Solid.
The world is a very small place.
Wow.
I mean, Gavin was behind San Francisco Fashion, where he backed it anyway. So I had things signed Gavin Newsom even back then. And Jennifer had not met him at this point. Okay. So I can say I've known Jennifer Siebel longer than the governor of California has known her. And we did this first prototype, went really well. There was suggestions for improvement. Each prototype cost 60 New Zealand dollars. That's about $40 US to do, because we're printing one-offs, and digital printing was really expensive. But we did them. And I flew up to meet the agencies. L'Oreal said, yep, we want to be part of this. Can you do a monthly? I said, yeah, I can do a monthly, which was crazy when you think back. It was nuts. Why would anyone do a monthly in a market of 4 million people? But I think at the back of my mind, again, it was always about reaching out beyond our borders. It was always about creating something that would resonate globally. And I think my mistake, and I know we'll come into the tips later, I didn't hire the best people to start with. There were some real troublemakers. And I think when you've got troublemakers in the business, the energy is wrong. So things didn't go as well as I planned. We did make a big loss in year one. But the good thing in year one was a company in Romania, of all places, said, we want to license Lucire. A company in Dubai said, we want to license Lucire. So all of a sudden, I thought, this is what I wanted. This was proof of concept. We were the first fashion magazine and the second publication in the world to go from online presence into print. The first was Slate. Slate I think they were doing it out of Redmond, Washington. And their print editions were just Word files sent to copy shops and sold at Starbucks. So that was the first time someone had taken an online property into print. We don't count Yahoo Internet Life because that was a straight licensing deal with Yahoo. And so it was the first time this had happened. We got coverage in Women's Wear Daily. It was kind of, I didn't even know how important this was until I looked back going, whoever did this was crazy.
It seems like you've been on the cutting edge of what you've been doing, and it's shifted over time. And, something near and dear to us is absolutely the ethical side. Conscious capitalism, that is, and the time frame, I forget what year at this point, but you were doing it very, very early. So what was the inspiration for that? Just being around the industry in general?
I think even fashion wasn't very conscious at this point. This was another limb, really, because I was doing work at that print agency, which included graphic design. I got into branding. That was the topic of my master's thesis. I was online on Yahoo in the mid-90s, and the only other branding guy on Yahoo was a guy called Chris McRae, and his dad was the deputy chief editor of The Economist magazine. And I got in touch with Chris, and we just started talking, and and then in 2002, so again, this is post 9/11, we had that great deal from Deutsche Bank. I always loved Swedish design, and if you look at Sweden in the late 20th century, in the late 90s, early 2000s, they had the most cutting-edge websites in the world. They were just incredible-looking things, really clever use of JavaScript. And I thought, I want to see this country. This sounds like a cool country. Okay. So I go to my travel agent, a friend of mine, and I say, hey, what's the return ticket to Stockholm? And so she told me it was 3,000 New Zealand dollars. That same evening, literally 3 hours later, Chris McRae sends me an email saying, hey, do you want to come to Sweden? There's a conference for branding in Sweden. Okay, this is weird, Chris. I've just literally got a quote on flying to Sweden. I've got to go. This is a sign from God, whatever you want to call it. And I went, and this was the start of, it was called back then the Chief Brand Officers Association. And no one was using the term Chief Brand Officers, but now it's called Medinger Group. I'm there with Medinger. I'm there with the top guys in the business, guys I'd read their books when I was studying. Like Nicholas Innes, he was sitting right next to me. Did you write the corporate image? Yes, yeah, that was me. And they treated me as the equal. I thought, I'm this kid. I still feel myself as a kid. I was 29 years old. But I thought, I'm this kid from New Zealand. But everyone had to present a paper. They liked what I had to say. And the big topic that year was, this was right after Enron had collapsed. This was after Naomi Klein wrote No Logo. So conscious capitalism was really very in the zeitgeist. And I listened to the other presentations which were on that topic. I thought, yeah, hey, this is where it has to head. This has got to be the next thing that we've got to do. So I kind of brought back that idea into my own business. So when we were doing Lucire, it was through one of Chris's contacts, Will Rogowski, who was working with the United Nations Environment Program. I said, Will, I want to team up with you. There's got to be a way to make fashion more sustainable and better on the environment. And he agreed, and we just figured out what a partnership would look like. And I said, I'm going to commit to profiling sustainable and ethical designers. You've got to have the unsustainable ones in there, right? Because there was a magazine in the US called Organic Style, and it died in like 2005, 2004. Just why? Because it was only preaching to converted. And I thought, if you're a mainstream title, you cannot afford to just preach to the converted. You would starve. And what I had been doing earlier with the online edition of Lucire was I was teaming up big labels with independent labels. They were only selling one city, which again that's not something fashion magazines did. You wouldn't mix and match. But I thought, I don't care. I don't have any, these folks aren't even advertising with me. Why do I need to really champion anyone? I just want something that looks good and that people can say, yeah, hey, you know what? I can pair up something cheap with something expensive, which again, just wasn't done in the late 90s, early 2000s. So that became kind of an idea to make sure that I had sustainable labels. And back then, too, the US was really shifting toward that. So I kind of caught a wave unexpectedly to focus on ethical companies. And that's of course what Medinger still does today, and I'm now co-chair of that organization. And to this day, we still have a UNEP partnership. We still are focusing a lot on sustainable designers. I think in the most recent print issue, I think I profiled two or three out of the three that we do every issue. So we really have stuck to our guns. But yeah, and the same magazine would be all the catwalk stuff. Just so you keep your mainstream audience happy.
That is incredible. The timing of it, because I remember some of those events, but not having the perspective on the business side of like, okay, this is the trending, and it's like that makes perfect sense. I'd never compared like the Enron collapse of somebody doing not the right thing to that's going to shift public opinion. And all right, what's the better way to do this?
Yeah.
It's wild how these catalyst events change the environment. But going back a little bit, taking things over to print in multiple countries, what was that experience like? As somebody from an isolated place, now I'm sure you got to go to a lot of these places that you were licensing to.
Yeah, I didn't get to go to Romania, interesting enough. It was still really coming out of communism. I know they'd technically been out of communism for a while, but they were still really finding their feet. They just joined the EU. And it was interesting to do it because that was the ultimate aim, to see it in different places. It was exciting. It wasn't enriching. A lot of these companies were taking a chance and they were wanting to do it, but they themselves weren't really generating much of a profit either, because they were going through the whole startup thing like I had just done.
Right.
In Romania, what was the trouble there was we produced, I think, 6 beautiful issues, or our Romanian licensee, Mirella and Valentin, her son, and they had done incredible work, but the mafia controlled distribution in Romania. If you don't pay backhanders, your magazine stays at warehouses. And they were ethical like me. They said, well, we're not giving money to organized crime. You don't sell magazines in Romania. And that's the short answer. And we sold pretty poorly. I don't remember the figures, but I know that it was not where they wanted to be. And after 18 months, that was it for Lucire Romania. But we did some great issues. I would tell Romanian New Zealanders that I see who we had, and they go, "Oh my God, you got her!" So we did some amazing stories in there. But then the next one was Thailand, and that was again a great experience. Miguel Kurjon was publishing it there. Again, didn't make a heck of a lot of money out of it. But Miguel had a really interesting angle because his version of Lucire was distributed at Twin Palms Resort, and they had to last 6 months to a year, so they weren't monthly. And he took a completely different approach to art direction. He was Swiss trained, and a lot of that actually impacted on our edition in New Zealand, because we started thinking, maybe, we cannot do monthly. Maybe we shouldn't do monthly because there's not a market for it in this country. Maybe we should do what Miguel's doing and have them sit around for 2 months or a quarter or half a year or whatever, but a longer period. Mm-hmm. And that also coincided with a shift in publishing where newspaper circulation is going down because everyone's going online. Magazines had a choice. They could stay where they were and face also decline, or they could go more upmarket and be, if you like, soft cover coffee table books. And I thought that's where we have to be. We've got to go upmarket because we're not getting enough advertising. There's just not enough in this country. So maybe a premium publication is where we need to go. And we started doing that shift really in about 2012. So we kind of got to the end of the 2000s. It was a really heady, fun period. We had Gal Gadot in our last retail edition in New Zealand. We then went subscriber only. But we finished in 2009 in this country in terms of a retail edition. By that point, Qatar started doing a version of Lucire. That only lasted 2 issues. But we had Twin Palms. They were still going. We came back in 2012 to a subscriber edition that had to last sort of a quarter. And we took a lot of Miguel's ideas. And that just helped us into the 2010s. But we went through the GFC like everybody else. It was a tough time for publishing. Online ad sales, they were there, but boy, those online ads didn't make you any money at all. I mean, I could see the writing on the wall even in 2004, which is why I did print. 2012, it was a fraction of, I thought 2004 was bad. In 2012, online ads were earning a fraction of what they earned even compared to 2004. Okay. So we started off the last decade knowing that online was not going to be sustainable. You had to have something else beyond online. Online at best is a shop window. And when I see publications only find this out in the last 3 years, I'm going, did you not see this 20 years ago?
Where have you been?
Yeah, where have you been? And very fortunately, in 20, this is the way my partner likes talking about it. She says, I made you tidy your house and then you got a contract in Saudi Arabia. And that is certainly the sequence of events. I got a contract with a publishing firm. Well, in between, there was one more inquiry in Bahrain. So we actually did one issue in Bahrain. And that was a really weird story in itself. It was an Arab company with an Englishman as the second in charge. Mm-hmm. And his name was Steve Keane. And, we did the deal. I have a licensing agent in the UK who brokered it. And we thought, okay, hey, great, this is fantastic. I've always wanted to be in another Middle Eastern country. Bahrain's a cool place, and they had hired
a good place to party.
It's a great place to party. You've been there?
Yeah, I've been to Bahrain a couple times.
Yeah. So. And so they had hired the publisher and the editor in chief from Harper's Bazaar Arabia. So they had great people on board. I thought, fantastic. I'm going to earn a royalty for it. It was pretty good money. And that lasted one issue because the next thing is Bruce, my agent, says to me, Jack, I need you to watch this Panorama documentary. Panorama is like the British BBC version of like 60 Minutes.
Okay.
Steve's on it. Steve is the subject of this episode. Steve is not Steve. Steve is Russell King, a notorious international con man.
Oh, all right.
Who had conned banks. He conned the North Koreans. He flew to North Korea with Svan Göran Eriksson, the captain, the football guy, the manager.
I think I've heard of this guy.
Yeah. He eventually did go to prison for his crimes. And, oh no. So, of course, those Harper's Bazaar Arabia folks who left their jobs didn't get paid. The printer didn't get paid. I didn't get paid. It was a weird situation. So we fast forward to 2018. There's a Saudi company, there's an Arab company, an Englishman as the right-hand man. I'm going, hang on, I've seen the script.
Yeah.
But, these guys are legit. And I told Simon, who's the English guy, he was based in Cairo. And I said, Simon, you won't believe it. And I told him a story. We both had a really good laugh. And their business model was fantastic because they had a guaranteed sale to Saudia, the national airline of Saudi Arabia. Mm-hmm. And it's like, wow, okay, you guys don't need really to fight for newsstand sales because you've got a guaranteed X thousands of copies going to the airline every month. And probably in the 5 years we worked with them, and we want to work with them again, and because the contract had finished up, but there's been talk about doing it all again. They were boy, it was so enjoyable. Doing a monthly, which is how I envisaged it in New Zealand in 2004. Getting in some great stories and being able to market the ethical side to a very receptive Saudi audience. And Saudi Arabia's coming up hugely. So I know people have got different opinions about the Crown Prince, but from what I saw in terms of what he's doing for his country, he's got Vision 2030. For a start, women were allowed to drive, which was a big step forward in terms of just equality. He really wanted to encourage female entrepreneurs, including the fashion sector. He really wanted to just enlighten the creative sector in Saudi Arabia, because I think he knows that the oil's going to run out someday. So Saudi Arabia's got to make its money from other things. And we were, again, very lucky to catch that wave, to be part of this liberalization of Saudi Arabia, and to work with a woman-owned company who had a vision too, to make sure women had great reading material. So we did that, and it was just fantastic. So still hopeful. Now we're doing other things in the Gulf as well, which I probably can't talk about yet, but again, they're really exciting things. And it's nice to know, to get to age 53 and know you're still going to do your best work. Because I meet guys in the 50s who say, yeah, I did my best work in my 30s. I did my best work. I know my best work's behind me. I'm going, why? Right. 50, 53, 53 is not old. Just keep going. If you've got the opportunity, do the best work of your life. And I'm excited about a few things that are brewing. And in fact, we have just licensed the brand right there in the United States as well. So there's something coming out called Lucire, the edition. And that'll be coming out in 2026. It's going to be again, going up market. We're going to go up even further up market in the US. I've been chatting away to some of the team, and a friend of mine's licensed it. She's a New Zealander who married a very prominent Republican attorney. And being part of the US sort of fashion scene, which will give us some wonderful content as well. So great working with a friend who, again, good karma. We've been friends at a time when I think, I probably don't want to reveal too much, but she did not have the best time in New Zealand, and I always stood by her, because that's what you do with friends. And now it's really great to just see that goodness come back. And when she was faced with two brands that she could license, she chose mine. And you think, yeah, okay, that's
a powerful
partly
statement,
because I put out some good things out there.
I love that. You've already kind of gone into what you're doing now. Like what's been the progress? And I know we have another magazine to talk about that the Saudis, I'm sure, appreciate. But what's going on now with the branding? What's going on now typeface wise? Where's everything else come to?
The typefaces have. I'm just still retailing the existing range that we had. We haven't really updated. We've done a few private jobs. That's kind of where we've really been in the last sort of 5 to 6 years. So we haven't actively done anything new. I guess I've become some of those Australian guys who just do private accounts. Although of course there's still the retail range that earns a little bit of money. It's by no means the main focus. The branding is going pretty well. Branding and marketing, which always comes along with it. That has also, I suppose, gone a little quieter, because who would know that branding and marketing would be victims to AI as well? But there are folks who think, oh, maybe I can get AI to do a logo for me. That comes from a misunderstanding what branding really is, because branding is a lot more than a logo, right? You
Right.
would know this too. It's about every aspect of your organization and how it faces channel partners, distributors, and customers. So our main focus really has been, well, marketing is making a living, publishing is where we're still building new ventures. And 2 years ago, in 2008, actually, we created Autocade. And this was a hobby car encyclopedia I just decided to do because I like cars. And then at the end of 2023, Amanda, my partner, said, "You're getting 40,000 page views a day. Why aren't you monetizing it?" And I said, "Well, because online ads don't pay. They just make fractions of a cent. There's got to be something else you can do." I didn't know the 40,000 page views a day were probably 30,000 with AI scraping the content. But once we killed the AI, there was still a healthy 10,000 page views a day going through. And I thought, well, maybe we should do a print book. This is the one thing I know how to do. I'm the one guy who knows how to take a website and turn it into a print version. So we created yearbooks. We've now done 2. The first one was endorsed by a former Top Gear host. So you think that's pretty high praise to get a guy from Top Gear. And then also by Giles Chapman, who's an award-winning British author/editor. And I've followed Giles. Giles is only a few years older than me, so I've been following Giles's career since I was in my late teens, and he was probably 20. So I think there were 5 years between us. And so I've really just known this guy's work. So he endorsed it as well. I thought, I've got 2 guys endorsing it. I had one of my own team endorse it out of friendship, which is wonderful. I've got to keep doing it. The first one didn't sell that well because we didn't quite hit the Christmas season properly due to just the hold up at the printers. So what do you do for the second one? You make it fancier. You make it more expensive. You put more pages into it. And it sold better. And we got some press coverage as well in the UK in Octane magazine. And we pretty much every day that magazine was on the newsstands, we got sales. So it shows the power of the press. What I probably should do is do more podcasts and things like that. But at the time, I was kind of really approaching old school press releases, seeing who'd bite. But I know the action is on TikTok and Instagram and podcasts. So I will have to adjust my marketing for next year's edition.
I even feel old. I'm 37 and I still have some of that. I remember when we didn't have cell phones and it was nice. But you've gone through all of these experiences, and I know there's been some situations that have not been easy to deal with. And just the main question here is, how have you handled that pressure with all of these different things going on?
I think the toughest stuff was when we did the print Lucire, because I had to hire new people. And whether you want to call it religious or spiritual, I always kind of went where the big guy told me to go. Mm-hmm. And I would hire people, and I wouldn't do this today, but I'd hire people based on, back then I hired them on a gut feel. And that was a hard lesson to learn, to know you cannot trust your gut on something that important where you're paying somebody $60,000, $70,000 a year. And so we had, before we even launched a print magazine, we had one case of insubordination. And I should have just said, you know what? Get out of here. And here I was thinking, no, I'm a peacemaker. I can, everybody has a good side. And that was a big mistake. That was a hard lesson to learn, because in the end I had to get rid of that person anyway. Right. So why didn't I just do it earlier? And that caused a lot of pressure. And I think if I didn't have family, because my father was very much an active part of the business, my mother had passed away, sadly. But if I didn't have my dad, I'm not sure how it would have gone. I was still a bachelor at that point. I hadn't met my partner. And the lesson there, I suppose, is, get rid of insubordination, deal with it ASAP. Because when the energy is wrong, other things will go wrong. And it's not just the stress the insubordinate places on you. It is because I don't know what it is, but other things come out that aren't healthy. So we're in 2004, the magazine's launched. I've got my team, I think it's working. Someone at Fashion Week says, can you ship us your unsold magazines. We like to promote you, but we like to have them in goodie bags for Fashion Week. I said,
Mhm.
it's going to cost thousands to ship them to New York for Fashion Week. Oh, no, we'll give you our FedEx number and we'll pay for it. Okay, that's fine. I call the printers and say, hey, there are those unsold ones there from last month. Can you put them onto FedEx and here are the details? So that all went off and I thought, okay, we're going to get a lot of promotion at New York Fashion Week. Next thing is maybe a month later, FedEx says, that number you gave us is phony. Here's a bill for $5,000.
Mm.
And so that was, just one example. The other example was, and I didn't even realize it at the time. So 2006, there's a photographer who comes on board and he does some catwalk stuff. And okay, that's cool. Then he sends a jewelry shoot, and we're going, whoa, that model looks like a kid. She looks like a child. We're not running that. We're not that sort of magazine.
Right.
And we didn't really think anything of it. I lost touch with this guy, and that was that. 8 years later, 2014, one of my New York friends who still represents us in New York calls me. She said, Jack, the FBI's called. And I'm going, Anne, it's April 1st. Come on. Don't tell me you fell for that. I said, well, just call them back. Call the real FBI office in New York and just find out if there's really a special agent by this name. And he says, holy shit, there is. And I'm going, okay, well, you better see what it's about.
Mm-hmm.
So she goes and sees them. And it turns out that photographer was in custody and he was going to do something not nice to children. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm oh my gosh, this is not good. So the FBI, I'm under subpoena at this point. They're calling me, and I told them what I knew about this guy, and I said, is there anything that in particular you want me to search for through all my documents, because they were wanting to see what correspondence I had with this photographer. And he said, see if you can find this name. They told me the name. It's a female name in any of this guy's emails, and I said, well. And luckily, I've used the same email program since 1994. I still use it now. It's called Eudora. It's now called Aurora. So it's very easy for me to fire up old mailboxes and find stuff from 2006. And I sent it to them. They said, thank you very much. This is what we need. I think that was the child in the 2006 photo shoot. And obviously something had happened there. This guy went away for 39 years. He's still in prison today. We're not even have to think about this guy until about 2053 or something. So, good on the FBI for, doing their job and getting a predator off the streets. But yeah, that was how wrong the energy was. The sort of people you attract when you have the wrong people on board, you somehow attract other wrong people.
Yeah. It's something that can get out of control really fast if you have the wrong people in place.
I think so. I think we were a very visible business as well. Fashion publishing might not be as big today, but certainly in mid-2000s, everything was about fashion. The supermodels are still out there. InStyle magazine, it was all about celebrity fashion, what celebrities are wearing. I think post the first COVID wave, I think people don't care as much about what celebrities wear. But back then it was still very much a hot topic. So unfortunately we attracted our share of strange people, from, this guy did horrible things to children to, an international con man. Thank God those days are over.
We all have our lessons that we've learned. So to take it away from, something that isn't great to talk about to what do you, not get to talk about very often that you really just enjoy?
I guess I always enjoy talking about cars, but I suppose, thank God I've got AutoCAD. I think I've created things around me that are of things I want to talk about. So I'm really, really blessed in that way that I can sort of make money doing marketing and pretty much routine things. And certainly when we're doing the Saudi edition, I was very hands-on that every month, and I was very blessed to be able to write for that as well as art direct and publish. Um, I think I'm very, very blessed, very privileged to talk about things that I love all the time. Um, I suppose one thing I don't get to talk about too much is the immigrant experience. I don't speak my native language very often anymore because my parents have both passed away. And that's been a little tricky. Before I came onto this interview, I was at a launch for an Asian mental health service that the Minister of Health, so like Secretary, he was like the Undersecretary of Health in the American terms,
Okay.
was speaking at. And you think, yeah, this is really necessary because I didn't have anything like this growing up. It's like all the mentoring programs you see at universities. I'm part of that too because I didn't have that when I was at university. So I try to participate in things where I can be close and help others who've been through things that I've been through. But yeah, one thing I suppose is not being able to speak my native language. It's the only time I get to speak it is when I'm ordering food, going to a Chinese takeaway or Chinese restaurant.
Okay.
And you do ask things because I think if you're Chinese, you can tell if someone's from the north of China or south of China. We kind of look a little bit different. And if you see it's a southerner, you ask, hey, so what area? And they say the south. I know the south, like specifically, what county do you come from? And they'll say, okay, well, I'm from that. That's where my heritage is. I'm from that county. My father's from that county, and you get to pretty much county lines, and that's really fun. The two languages I speak are Cantonese and Taishanese, and here's the weird thing: I never spoke Taishanese at home because everybody in the family spoke Cantonese, but my father spoke to his parents, and I so enjoy speaking it now. I probably have an accent, but I love speaking it because I guess it connects me to my dad, and that's kind of fun.
Very cool. Well, I'm sure you have this reversed because you get to speak to people all the time, trying to help them out. But what advice would you give to the world? What's important? What do people really need to focus on?
If you're an entrepreneur, keep your promotion up. I think that's lesson number one. You never stop. And the difficult thing with New Zealand is we're like the opposite of the United States. In the US, it's okay to say, I'm number one in my field. I can, in New Zealand, it's like socially unacceptable to do that. Oh. You can say, I'm part of the number one team in my field, which is why I think the All Blacks, the rugby team, he does so well.
So good.
But the culture just isn't there. And what you got to do, whether in New Zealand or anywhere else in the world, is you got to keep your promotions up. The minute you take your foot off the gas, people forget you. And that was one thing I kind of learned through the Saudi years, because I was so busy working with them and I was loving it. I was thinking, hey, this is great. I don't really need to promote myself because I've got this great gig going. And the thing is, when contracts end, you're fishing around. You think, well, what else is out there? I mean, thank goodness I had other things to fall back on. But I really wanted something in publishing just to have the continuity because that was where my brain was. And again, thank goodness that's happening again. But for a period in 2023, that was the lesson I learned. I thought I did not keep my promotions up for about 5 years. I did maybe one interview with Business Desk in New Zealand. That was with an ex-Sunday Times UK journalist. I did a few here and there, but they weren't mainstream. And when I compare it to when I was really getting in a lot of business constantly and a lot of press coverage, it was once a week. I used to keep a tally. I was like, oh my gosh, I did 52 items of press this year. And to go from 52 to 3, that does have an effect on your business. So my advice is keep your promotions up. If you're not someone who is extroverted, it's okay. I'm not an extrovert either. Get somebody else to do it. Get someone who is an extrovert to help you do it. I think the other piece of advice is you got to have a strategy, and I don't mean a vision statement. I mean concrete steps, which is what you're very good at, Austin. I mean, with your naval background, you understand I think
Yeah.
people who have seen service understand there you have to have a strategy, because why would you have any encounter if you didn't have one? And thank you too, Austin, for your service on that.
I had a lot of fun blowing stuff up for a living. So, I mean, it was great.
But there's a strategy, and you've got to outline concrete steps. You've got to figure out what are the potential things that will get in your way, just as you did in the military. You've got to figure out what are the possibilities, and you've got to have responses for each one. And I think I'm always thinking about that constantly. And I think every entrepreneur really needs to do that. You cannot live on a vision statement. You've got to have concrete steps and milestones to reach.
Yeah. And that's a beautiful balance between Heather and myself. Is she is a promoter all day long, and I love planning it out. So
Yeah.
I think that's an incredible point to wrap it up, Jack. Thank you. Where can people find out more about you, more about your company, and more about your publications?
I hope so. They can, visit jackyoung.com, and it's been a real honor to spend this hour with you, Austin. And I wish you the best and your family, and to all the listeners out there, may your ventures go well.